Welcome to the Rockland Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, September 17, 2019. Please stand and join us for Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Ryan, can you lead us in the pledge?
I may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded by WRPS for playback on Comcast Channel 14 and Verizon Channel 31. It will also be available for online video on-demand viewing at WRPSRockland.com within 24 hours of its conclusion. As are other recently recorded meeting and community events, please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. Okay, first on the agenda, community announcements. Doug?
Thank you. I just got one that Jen handed to me. The Rockland Master Plan Committee is going to be hosting a community meeting on September 30th at 6:30 p.m. at the high school cafeteria. So again, that's September 30th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Master Plan Community meeting. So we'd encourage anybody in the community that's interested in the Master Plan update to attend and either listen or participate. That's all I have.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, next on the agenda, open session minutes from September 3rd, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve the open session minutes of September 3rd, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Next on the agenda, Mr. Mullen will join us.
What kept your horse fall down?
We could hear you coming.
Walk downstairs is 5 minutes slow.
Yeah, okay.
No, it really is.
Okay. Item number 4, change of hours for Class 1 licenses, South Shore BMW and South Shore Mini, located at 1040 Hingham Street. Do I have anybody from?
They're not here.
They're not here,
We
okay.
told them they didn't need to.
Okay.
It looks like they're just pushing the hours back an hour each, so it seemed like a pretty simple request.
Okay, so they're looking to go from a Sunday opening from 12 noon to change the opening at 12 noon to 11 a.m. and they want to change the Friday closing from 9 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Motion to accept.
I got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Motion and a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda, Union Street plan update. Goody Clancy, Kathleen Onifer. Hi, Kathleen. Come on up.
Thank you for having me. We've had the huge benefit of having Mike Mullen's consistent leadership on this project throughout the...
When I show up.
But always excellent when you're able to be there. And this was a project that was funded by the Mass Development Real Estate Technical Assistance Program and begun under the previous when Marcy Birmingham was here. But we really benefited from the participation of city staff, members of Reimagine Rockland, city staff both before and after the changes, town staff. This is a terrible habit that I have, and I will ask you all to sort of like knock on me when I say city staff instead of town staff. I spent the day in Lebanon, New Hampshire, which, while being smaller than Rockland, is a city, not a town. And also local business owners who really went above and beyond to make this effort a success. So in addition to a number of in-depth stakeholder interviews we did in order to really get at some of the core issues downtown with business owners, the library, the sewer department, we also had a full-day charrette, an event as part of the Open Studios event at the Sandpaper Factory. And these are just some pictures of all the great participation we had. I think ages ranging from 4 to 84 in terms of turnout, which is really great, and a lot of really creative ideas, a lot of really in-depth engagement with some of the strategies contained within the plan. Another thing we really pulled out is that the dogs and dog walking are very popular with the teenagers, which is always an important lesson to learn. This plan really focuses on the core of downtown, so looking at that Union Street corridor from Water Street to North Avenue. And was originally set to focus on some catalytic development sites, looking at what build-out could look like under the 40R district regulation. Then as we did those stakeholder interviews, as we worked with the community, we really saw it was a broader range of issues to consider in downtown. So we saw issues not only of infrastructure and redevelopment, but also just issues of quality of life, of public space, of being a thriving community that's able to meet together and use the downtown. And so that led to our creating recommendations that deal not just with the development, but also with the sort of some broader recommendations for urban design and streetscape. So including the continuing to promote historic preservation of the town's building as well as other historic buildings in the downtown. But looking for opportunities to really invest in what the street feels like, what spaces feel like, particularly in the short term that can be lower cost options like overhead lighting or some creative crosswalk efforts. We did then do that sort of strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats analysis and design work for what those catalytic properties could look like. And so that's a lot of what I'm going to show you here. So McKinley Community Center, how that historic building could be restored, particularly looking at work that could happen on the grounds of the community center and how that comes out to Union Street, both to make it more accessible to the public, to have more of the town and anyone passing by on Union Street realize what an incredible asset is there in both that building and the programming that takes place there. And also looking at the play area and the public spaces that are there, and that's something you'll hear more about later. We also looked at the fire station and how that potentially, as a public space, could end up getting tied into the library. And so that could involve some of those shorter term moves like a public art mural, including some additional seating beyond the granite bench that's out at the library that would make that incredible space just in front of one of the most attractive libraries in Eastern Massachusetts, something that can be more used there. Two, looking at how that fire station building could eventually be reused for a dining use and with potential other uses on the upper floor, either as office or otherwise. We also went and looked over at some sites on Park Street where there was the recent fire, and particularly what those would look like under the 40R build-out if they were to be a little bit higher, that higher density residential, how we made sure that that design could then fit into some of the street pattern and help support that corridor as a connection between downtown and the neighborhoods there. And so we thought really important to emphasize that the town's looking at buildings that have that transition in scale in that area. And I think the other thing being to really look at improving the sidewalks when there's new construction happening on some of these streets to make sure that every resident on that or surrounding area and community is benefiting. Another site we looked at was looking at both the gas station and then how that could relate to town hall here. And this is sort of an interesting site because there's an opportunity with the topography as you go down that hill headed to the school. You can sort of actually build some parking that tucks in behind the building and underneath that level, which is pretty exciting. So you see that potentially could be public parking, depending on how a public-private partnership or development could move forward and take advantage of that topography change. And this was also just trying to envision and get ideas back from people of what scale would be too much. Of what development could look like. And what we heard at the charrette was that this was the scale people were comfortable with in downtown, and that this felt like a good vision to work towards of what the scale of redevelopment we'd like to see on some of these parcels would be. We also looked at some transportation and parking, and this is a inventory we made of the existing sort of on-street and off-street public parking resources in the area. We include this just to sort of point out that there are a lot of parking resources in the area, but as we heard clearly, they're not working well, and so there are some short-term moves we can make to make sure that we're better able to take advantage of all this parking, both so that people can park and walk within downtown, but also that the signage, it's easier to locate where it is. We also included all these numbers because one of the recommendations will be for the town to continue to monitor this so that they're able to invest in parking resources in the future as needed. Something that really came out of the charrette was the desire for stronger regional connections. On my way here, I dropped one of my coworkers off at the Hanover MBTA station to pick up her car because then I got to take the HOV lane with her coming with me. And the importance of those close connections, both to Hanover, to Abington, to Weymouth, in terms of being able to be a regional destination, to access the MBTA, and also to access some of the regional recreational destinations that you have in terms of the town forest and the trails there, really came out in the meeting there. Related to that was a question we had on looking at natural systems and open space, and the town did a lot of really hard work on the open space and recreation plan, and so we've folded those recommendations into this downtown plan and know that a lot of the investment in open space and recreation is likely to be in the neighborhoods. But one piece we saw was really important was the rail trail, which is this sort of huge success, and sort of ready for the next level of investment and success, so that more people are available. It's there. And that could include things like just signage that marks that gateway that's a little more visible, and as well as other amenities like water fountains, bike racks, trash cans. All that can be a part of that. And so we did a little bit of a imagining of what that could look like, particularly how that could still incorporate, if the Metro PCS tenant were to ever change, that potentially could be a place for an ice cream shop or other similar use in that area, or continue to function as it is now without impeding that business. So you see the sort of improvement to that crossing, making it safer for all ages, a really clear visual connection across the trail, signage, and the opportunity to expand on the public art that you have in the memorial there, as a sort of really signpost intersection of the community. We also did some recommendations for business attraction and retention. Those get relatively detailed in that they're starting to look at some of the code issues and building permits. And all this is to say, I've been going through this relatively quick in order not to take up too much of your agenda. But I will say that all of this has very detailed recommendations, and I believe it's posted on the city's website as something to really consult as a resource going forward in the future. And so of those sort of 14 pages of goals and strategies and actions that we came up with, I just wanted to highlight a few of them. We did, in setting those up, identify both leadership and potential resources, whether that be grant or other funding that the town could pursue. We did sort of set a sense of whether items are a short-term, a medium-term, or a long-term action, because some of them will require really sustained effort over that long term to be successful. And then some of them might be short-term actions that are able to really build momentum now. And I think highlighting that as something you've already begun, which is the work to upgrade sewer and water infrastructure, as being a really important long-term effort that's just sort of sustained step-by-step effort to make sure that you're able to accommodate the sort of redevelopment envisioned in these scenarios for downtown across the whole. So of those short-term projects that could really build momentum for the plan, the ideas in here, and offer just a real huge bang for the buck, I'm going to highlight just sort of 4 of them. The first one would be some of the placemaking recommendations by the McKinley Community Center, specifically looking at the playground and how it could be possible to make that more publicly accessible, particularly outside of hours where it needs to be sort of private in order for the daycare to operate, more visible from Union Street, so it's not just tucked behind the fence there, and also sort of a site that could be improved with some landscaping and lighting that really had some good synergy with improvements to the play area. And this is an opportunity for us where we could point to both the Youth Commission and the Park Department as town staff who are really entrepreneurial about going after these opportunities, and so are ready to sort of be a lead in pursuing these opportunities there. Another option would be, and that's sort of the shorter term category, high impact, would be looking at wayfinding signage, and that would be developing a coordinated wayfinding and signage program that not only told people where to go, but also expressed a sense of place, a feeling, as opportunity for art and history, really about Rockland and what makes Rockland special. Something that kind of added to beautification and excitement in downtown. So that when that's done as a whole system, that means that signage can point out where parking is. It can help you understand the best way to walk to the high school from Union Street. And it also can sort of call attention to some of those major public destinations you have in the downtown, like the library. The other thing would be related to that rail trail, that opportunity for sort of gateway signage there, as a way to really understand that the trail is there and open for use. A third piece was related to that sort of inventory we did of parking spaces, is that conducting a parking utilization study. So we sort of made note of how many spaces they were. A utilization study would go the next level of detail and sort of tracking how it was used at different times of day and even in different seasons, because there's school parking is such a part of the downtown here. And this would be an opportunity to really look at pursuing grant or technical assistance from Mass Development or MAPC in the future. What that parking study would let you do is be able to answer as a town what kind of parking problem you have and what are the right strategies, the most cost-efficient strategies as a town to address them, so that you know that you're acting with some data behind that goal. And then the other option is to then, the town already has the National Register District, including the individually listed buildings like the library. But that more broadly, one of the main goals of the downtown is to continue to preserve the historic character of the downtown as a New England town center, so a place with all of these great civic uses where people come. And so the town could consider adopting a local historic or cultural district as an overlay on top of the regulation and the zoning that would make sure that as redevelopment came forward, we were really evaluating it, particularly if it was new construction, like that example I showed on the gas station site, for how it would promote that sense of place and identity, continue to make the town center strong. And that's an effort that could be led by both town staff and the Historical Commission, really in line with their mission there for that area. And so that's really just 4 highlights of that. It's an extensive plan. One of the great things about doing a downtown plan like this is we were able to bring in a lot of really great efforts you've done in the last couple of years, whether that was Reimagine Rockland's events and organizing, the open space and recreation plan, the housing production plan, and hopefully then give some good ideas going into the citywide master plan. Because always be planning, right? It's sort of always a process of taking what's in those plans and then looking forward of how they can be used and affected there. So I'm really excited to see how the implementation of this plan moves forward. I know you've got some great stakeholders and actors here in the town, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of the master plan process based on the downtown plan. And I'm happy to answer any questions you've got about the plan, the process, or the details of the implementation.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Mullen?
Okay, I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to kind of emphasize what you just said in terms of the progress and all the pieces that we've been working with over the past few years. This really, and when you look at the implementation matrix, you can really see how we're taking all those successes, and really bringing them all together, into a plan and a matrix that really works, and that there's a synergy with everything now. And I think, that's important. We have, as Kathleen mentioned, we do have some really achievable short-term goals, a lot of which really involve providing some renewed focus to Reimagine Rockland, which will be helpful, but also some things that we as a town have to consider, just in terms of our capital needs and all those things going forward. But the most refreshing and exciting part of this all for me has been to really bring together all the pieces, whether it's the 40-yard district, the rail trail, everything we've been working to achieve these past few years together, so that it finally all really works together, and hopefully we'll be able to achieve like what I think our collective vision really is. So I just want to thank Kathleen, everyone from Goody Clancy, from Asset Development, for Jen, who was thrust into this project right when she started. Actually, Doug, before he was even hired, he actually attended the charrette at the sandpaper factory, which was another reason why we wanted to hire him, in my opinion. But also,
He was already hired.
but also, I can also give like a thanks to Marcy for like her work, like in leadership, like in really pulling this whole thing together. I can also working with like I think Master Development to really make sure it was a priority, and working with them around the timing to really start this whole project. It's I think this whole thing will take us into the next few years, or probably decade, and it'll be fun to work to accomplish. So thank you, Kathleen.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. It's a great plan. It looks really, really wonderful. But we have to have people that are going to invest the money in the downtown to do this, and how are we going to attract them? Years ago, when Ariel Serrano came here, we had a district set out as a TIF, where they give them a tax break for a certain amount of years, and then they pay up to the certain thing. I mean, has been any thoughts about making the R2 district or the TIF also?
There's and you'll be particularly interested in the sort of redevelopment section of the implementation strategy, because we look at how potentially a DIF, so a district implement sort of financing, could potentially work, but also how the town could look at sort of doing a rebate of some of the sewer connection or water connection fees or building permit fees, particularly at smaller renovation scales, where you still end up collecting the revenue, but making it so it's less of a hurdle to get over all at once for a
Right.
small business, spread over time. So a number of recommendations that are trying to deal with that issue, because it is absolutely a challenge.
Yeah, I just don't, we had these, a lot of people walk around town one day, a couple summers ago, or maybe last summer. And one of the things I talked about was, if a guy comes in and buys the new building, what about the guys on the first floor that are the businesses?
Right.
They're paying X amount of money, are they going to have, if they have to pay X amount plus
Right.
the new rate, then,
Yeah.
it might drive some of those businesses out of town, which sort of defeats the purpose, if you will, I guess. I don't know. I suppose everything has to change, and it's going to be slow and eventual, but,
Yeah.
you'd like to make sure that everything's in place, that, that if a guy comes in here and wants to buy a property, that we have an opportunity for him to make sure that his project goes.
They know how to navigate the system.
There you go.
Yeah,
So.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that was great about learning about the sandpaper factory in particular was how that sort of financial model is working to not clear out tenants, but to sort of add in. And I think given that there's some vacancy on the sort of second floors, there's potential for that to happen continue that model to happen in downtown, which is really
He's
great.
done a great job over there.
Yeah,
And we
it's
thank
really
him.
exciting
Yeah,
building.
very nicely
and just
done.
community businesses. It just really, I think we all talk about it sometimes as a jargon word, innovation, but the sandpaper factory really is an example of everything we talk about in terms of craftsmanship and artisanship, the cabinet making that's happening there, the artists themselves, just all together. It's really great, really a huge asset.
Nice job.
Yeah. And I thank you everyone for having us. It's been just a real joy, and also really fun to get to brag to our coworkers who live here and in surrounding communities that we're working in Rockland.
So one of the things that I just really appreciated about the presentation is we've done so much. Larry, you mentioned it,
gotten
right?
so much
so
done.
We've done development walks with developers, and we've done presentations to large groups about Reimagine Rockland. What is Reimagine Rockland? And a lot of people sit back and it's kind of funny. What does that mean? And I think by seeing some of the things that you put on paper, one of the things that we stressed at one point is is that gas station next door. Stop looking at it as a gas station. Look at it as a half an acre lot in the center of a downtown.
Yeah.
So by putting a picture out there, of Starbucks, I'm sure everybody's going to be calling Doug tomorrow and asking when Starbucks is opening, because that was one of the things that was thrown at us when we met in the very beginning was, what do we want downtown? Well, we want a Starbucks. Well, that's not really the way it works, but you can reimagine it now, and you can actually see it on paper. And I think as a board, as a department, I think it's up to us now going forward to make sure that this vision becomes a reality. You know what I mean? And what we can do, and it may not be snap your fingers and done overnight, but if we keep this as we can do short gains, to your point, and just keep going from there.
Like in that, at that point too, I just want to emphasize. I remember, actually, 2 town meetings ago, there was real emphasis on all the older historic buildings and what we as a town wanted them to become. And I think a lot of people left that town meeting for many reasons, thinking that there was a group in town who wanted to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I hope everyone has seen and will be able to see from this whole implementation plan that we really want to embrace our character, the character of Union Street.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I think that's really reflected here, and hopefully it gives some of those residents who had those concerns a little bit of a pause to remind them that I think we're on the right track anyway.
I think you remember we were pushed back with people kind of assuming that it was going to turn into a concrete jungle, that it was going to be these giant brick buildings and it would have no personality. And I think at least Carrie, you weren't on the board yet, but Mike, Larry, and myself, when we were going through it, we were pretty adamant that we like what we have. We just want to enhance it. And these small, subtle things like the bike path, stuff like that. Small things like signage. Just, that's easy. Those are short wins. That really just spice it up a little bit, make it look a little bit more. And other towns have it. It's not new. And it's kind of cliche to say why not us, but really, why not us? So it's on paper.
Exactly.
We have the plan in front of us, and now I guess it's up to us to work towards this goal. So.
Yeah, and the great thing about having a plan is that you can make sure the short-term efforts are pulling in the same direction while you're doing those long-term ones. And so it's really great that you're sort of, I know, paying a lot of attention to what are those big long-term moves that we have to put into play now to make sure those are all moving together.
It's amazing how many different moving parts are going on behind the scenes that people don't always see. And to Mike's point, Jen from day one since she came in, Doug has been working with her as well, and really, Marcy kind of, started kind of the whole thing. And it wasn't a priority of past administrations, and but for people that have been here for a long time, it is for us. I want to see Rockland, be as great as it can
Union
be.
Street
Absolutely.
shapes the whole opinion, the
Perspective of the
perception
town.
of the whole town.
I know when I drive through a town,
Yeah.
I spent some time out in Bolton and Quinton over the past weekend at my brother's wedding, and you're driving through, and it's like, what a beautiful little downtown.
Yep.
Nice little quaint New England, it had that great, historical feel, great colonial feel, and we can do that. It's just a matter of us, holding ourselves responsible to it, I think.
Even minor changes, I know, like the paving of Union Street, a lot of people I work with are like, wow, Rockland looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Like something as minor as paving the road,
Yeah,
can really
huge
make a
difference.
huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
the
great
brick
point.
crosswalk.
Yeah, those are
Very nice
amazing.
contrast. It really looks nice.
And that's a grant.
Yeah,
That's a grant. It's money that was there.
Yeah.
there you go.
So, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Great.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
luck.
you.
Thank
This is
you.
great.
Jen? Mike, Jen?
If I may.
Oh, yeah.
I
Go
also want to
ahead.
thank Kathleen and her team from Goody Clancy.
Yeah.
They were professional and knowledgeable throughout the whole process. But I would also like to ask the board to, if you're okay with the plan, to adopt it. That will lend some weight to it when we apply for some further grant funding and start implementing some of these action items.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the plan.
I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion to accept the downtown Rockland action strategy as the plan for Union Street.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comment? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Oh.
That's the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Definitely.
All right, moving on. Next on the agenda, Charter Review Committee vacancies. Mr. Lapp.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned at the last Selectmen's meeting 2 weeks ago, where I just sort of gave you a preview, I know the board is anxious for the Charter Review Committee to get going, and I've been working with the town clerk just to make sure we had the proper list of those who are on the committee. And it appears, and not appears, it is, that we have 3 vacancies left. So what I put in your packet outlines the language that was voted at town meeting with the makeup of the committee, 9-member committee, which includes 3 people from the existing Charter Maintenance Committee, plus 6 others that are sort of ad hoc appointed by the board. And working with Donna, we filled in who we believe, has been appointed, is still interested, has been sworn in, et cetera, and there are 3 vacancies. So I thought, unless you have 3 people that you're already, prepared to appoint, you'd want to just start a process, publicly announce it that you're seeking members, and, we could put an end date on it. And I think it's in our interest to get this filled as quickly as possible so the committee can get rolling. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but it was really just to kind of highlight this and to kind of see if that's the direction you wanted to move in.
So I think we should look at October 1st. That's our next meeting. Gives 2 weeks. That's enough time for applications. Put it out there.
We can try, so you'd like to make the appointments on the
Yeah.
1st?
Yeah. Well, I have the interview process.
Okay.
And then the appointments.
Sure. So we can publicly announce, later tonight, that we're seeking, 3 more individuals, and we'd like to have them come in on the 1st for interviews. That's great.
I'm with that. Yep. You guys agree?
Yeah, no, that makes
sense.
perfect sense.
Okay.
I want to get this off the ground. so-
Yeah, absolutely.
And then maybe just along that point, so then I think a good first step, once the committee's formed, obviously they should, elect a chair and all that. Then I'd like to invite the form of government committee from the MMMA to come in. They can meet with that committee, with our committee, and give their input, and then kind of help them get started. That's free, so.
It's a good price. Okay, moving on. McKinley School Building Sprinkler, CPA application discussion.
If I could start?
Yep.
And I think Jean is here, which we can have her fill in as well. I just wanted, I'm new here, and I'm new to the process that you use with CPA applications, but I just wanted to suggest that I think a good way to go for any potential CPA project that involves a town-owned asset, whether it's land, a building, that, in my opinion, I think you, as the Board of Selectmen, should endorse or support it before it gets submitted. I've just had experience in my prior job where sometimes, and I'm not saying that's the case with Jean, because it's not, but you can have situations where other people might submit applications for a town project, and the selectmen might not have been on board, and then things just get confusing. So I think it's just simplest and cleanest to make sure that you're on board with a project before, or at least on board with the submission of the application before it gets made. Then it's obviously up to the CPA committee to decide if they think it's appropriate or not. So that was part of why I wanted to have this here. In working with Jen, who was the one that was really working with the fire chief and with Jean and getting the sprinkler done, it became clear that the top floor wasn't funded. That needs to get done as soon as possible. I think the commitment was made by all of you and others that it would be done at the next town meeting. We did confirm with town council that CPA funds are appropriate and allowed for this type of use. It's a historic building, so this would help preserve that. Jean's done some good work in working with the sprinkler company to get quotes. There's a couple different options. The most likely option I think that the fire chief would prefer is around $244,000 in that neighborhood. So what we're suggesting, we still have some more details to sort out, would be submitting a CPA application to be, considered at the next annual town meeting to fund the remainder of the sprinkler project. And, Gene and Jen could fill in more details if you have, but it was really just to kind of make sure you're on board with this approach before it got submitted to the CPA.
Mr. Chairman, didn't we have a plan for that? Is we allowed money to assess the building, town meeting last year?
So we did,
Did we use?
obviously, we put together the funding for the basement, the first floor, and the second floor. The third floor was remaining closed. And I remember, I think Chief Duffy had made the comment that obviously it'd still have to be done, so that was going to be appropriated for this year's town meeting. I'm not sure, we did do,
No, we
did we have a plan
we
to-
put together, we
There
put
was
together an article for...
$25,000.
25,000.
Allocated
28,
for...
was it 28?
Right around there.
Yeah.
For an assessment.
To
and I think-
evaluate the place.
Exactly. I mean, I think we should evaluate the place. I mean, evaluating the community center, like its future needs, actually corresponds to exactly what's in the Goody Clancy plan we just approved. The thing is that no matter what we do with that building, long and short term, we have to have the building operational, and not mothballed. So understanding that we have to do the assessment, I'd rather have that building be able to be operational until we figure out what the long-term plan of the building is. So I'm not walking away from that assessment at all. I'm just saying that we should have it up.
Yeah,
Doug, you
you
have that?
you totally stole my thunder.
sorry.
Where I was going,
You
where I
had
was
the whole time.
where I was
Oh,
going
sorry,
with that.
Doug.
No, it's all good.
So Mike does.
Was that I think we do need to have the building, up to code,
Yeah.
properly sprinkled, regardless of whatever use, public or private, happens there. But I brought with me the town meeting vote. They appropriated $30,000 for facility assessment, so we're going to move full speed ahead and do the right work to bring in a consultant to do that, and that'll evaluate program, facility, et cetera. But I think the last floor needs to be sprinkled, and this seems to be
No,
the best way to get it done.
Look at you, great memory over there. The old guy,
I
right?
got nothing else left, I got nothing, that's all I can do is sit around and think these days.
Okay, so Jean, do you have any comments about it? No?
No. I
Any
think
further
that's
discussion? You
good.
covered it all? Okay.
Yeah, you
Okay.
guys got it right on the money, that's exactly it. The chief just wanted us
Yeah.
to start working on it as of July 1st
Okay.
of next year.
So, I just want to, kind of reiterate what Doug was saying. Under no circumstances are we telling the CPA board, how to vote or what to vote for. We're just offering our endorsement to the use of CPA money for this project, to apply for CPA money for this project. So, Jen, do you have anything on this? You good?
That's everything.
Okay. All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to express our support of the community center application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Go for it.
Okay, there's a vote. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Doug.
No,
Next on the agenda, municipal hearing officer designate, I'm sorry, I skipped one. School building project, town meeting, and election dates, vote. So this one was, I'll take responsibility here. As a member of the school building committee, the school building committee had voted to hold a special town meeting on December 2nd, and subsequently have a vote, town election on December 21st. The mistake that was made was we didn't clarify with the clerk's department in time to see if they'd be able to staff an election. So deferring to the town clerk for guidance in this, the plan is to propose a special town meeting for December 2nd at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium, followed by a town election on December 7th, Saturday, December 7th, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And those are the dates put forward.
Oh, I can, just one question that I'm sure is obvious, but I imagine all this works within the required MSBA timeframe
It
and all
does.
that.
It does.
So,
And, I think it actually works out well. It keeps it fresh in people's minds. You go to town meeting on Monday, you vote on Saturday.
Yep.
So, I'll entertain a motion to approve those dates.
I'll make that. I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That's a vote. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, next on the agenda, municipal hearing officer designation. Doug.
So there are two potential hearings that may need to occur in the future. One relating to a dangerous dog that's an issue in a neighborhood, and another one potentially dealing with some building fire code violations. So there's nothing really in the charter or in state law that says exactly who the municipal hearing officer should be. In looking through the files, it seems as though the prior town administrator had been designated that at different times in the past. So what we're suggesting is, unless you really want to do dog hearings and things like that, that you vote to designate Jen and I as municipal hearing officers so we can handle those issues. And obviously, if there's ever one that you felt was important enough for you to do, you could always do that. But for these kind of administrative things, especially with things like dangerous dog hearings, which can be very difficult for public meetings and elected officials to have to try to handle, we thought it'd be better for us to do it. Jen's actually already gone so far as to take a free training with the state to get educated and how to conduct them and evaluate them, which is excellent. But that's the request, and I don't have any particular wording that you need for the motion. If you want to do it, it would just be as simple as, designating
I'll make the motion to make our town administrator and assistant town administrator the hearing officer designations, designees, I should say. So that either or can do the job.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Any further comments?
Oh, and I think you guys will be perfect for the job, too.
Be careful, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
So do you both need to be present for these hearings, or just one or the
No,
other?
it would be one or
type
the
of thing?
other,
Okay.
yeah. Unless one of us needs backup, but presumably one or the other.
Just checking.
Anybody else?
No.
Anybody else got jokes?
Sorry, I didn't mean
Okay.
to hijack that.
Mine wasn't a joke.
No, I know yours was an actual question. That was good. So I got a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, road acceptance policy.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I'm continuing to learn more every day on the job. So this agenda item initially started because there was a resident in town named Dr. Mike Fortune. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. Fortune, I think. He lives at the Rockland Glen condominiums, and he was asking to be placed on a meeting agenda because he would like their private roads to be accepted as public ways. So I looked, and initially I didn't see the town's policy on road acceptance. I couldn't find one. Checked with the highway superintendent, Dave Taylor. He wasn't aware of a formal written policy either. So I wanted to have a discussion with you about what the town's practice has been in handling these types of things. Then I ended up working with Attorney Galvin on another matter, and he shared with me the town's policy, which I put in your packet. So this is great that we have this. So what I did with this particular request is I forwarded it's called an information sheet, instruction sheet, to the individual. And, there's a lot involved, as there should be, for the town to consider something like that, plans and, samples and legal documents. So I'm not sure if they're going to want to follow through on it. But I guess maybe the last thing for my discussion on this tonight is, in looking at this document, I'd like to take a closer look at it with Dave Taylor, because, it looks to me like kind of anything that gets brought forward can sort of automatically go before town meeting, and I'm not really sure that's what you would necessarily want to have happen. I think you'd want to use your authority to determine if you support it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, in the past, we had different roads. I remember the one off Summer Street down near the Jehovah's Witness Hall. the name escapes me, but they wanted to
No,
be
no.
public way, and they couldn't because they didn't have proper drainage or different things within the street structure itself. So I know there is a strategy by which we accept the streets, and that, I'm sure you got it all right here again.
Right.
So that, we should just look at it to make sure that it's, everything is copacetic with it, so that, if we have to stand against somebody, we have the proper justification, and if we can accept people's roads, then we should probably do so, as we have in the past. And we've accepted a lot of roads in the years that I've been on the board that were private developments that, made the jump, if you will, into town space. But any of that was substandard, we always questioned, and they weren't allowed to join until such things were cleared up, as far as I remember.
Another example is, it was a little bit unclear to me when I looked at this whether it requires all the abutters to sign off on the petition or only some. That was just a little bit unclear to me. So it's that kind of thing I think might be helpful.
Oh, it's
And
helpful.
some of that's a policy decision, too. You might
Right.
want to have 100%, or you might only want 51%. I mean, that's the kind of thing we'd want to think about, so.
I just have one question for you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, so you mentioned working with the highway superintendent. So is this, my question, is this like a Board of Selectmen policy, or is it like a planning board policy?
Yeah,
Or
so-
is it kind of both?
Yeah, so, this is written as a planning board document.
Okay.
Which I can understand why, because as part of the
Yep.
process, there's selectmen votes, there's planning board votes, town meeting. But in my experience, I mean, it's generally a Board of Selectmen
Okay.
policy that would be adopted. And maybe it's something in Rockland we would do a joint,
Okay.
a joint policy, that's fine. But I would think you'd want to have some influence on what the town's policy is in this.
Oh, Ms.
I
Tennessee,
see a
Mr.
hand up in the
Chairman?
back.
I'm familiar with that document and the road acceptance. That was when I was on the planning board and chairman at the time.
Come on down.
Come on down here, the young fella.
Timing's everything. Tom Henderson, 102 Arlington Street. And there was a concern, we didn't have a policy at the time with road acceptance. It was looked at solely from the planning board view. It ran concurrently with subdivision control. So when we had a few subdivisions, and we also had some private developments that were looking to just automatically enter into a road acceptance. So we put some parameters onto that. I'd be more than happy to work with you in what we did, but I do know that the planning board does recommend at town meeting. It's been a practice ongoing that they recommend that it met the specifications, and then it was also the selectmen that recommended, so it was a joint recommendation. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, I think, Doug, I tend to, agree with you on this one, that we should look into this a little bit further before we, it's already adopted, but I think we should look at it, especially as it pertains to the highway department. So-
Agreed.
I remember the planning, you guys used to always come before us and go over all your articles anyway, and then we approved the articles to go on the town meeting warrants, so that, if they approved it, then, we let them speak about it, but we also had the paper, I remember we had paperwork and stuff like that on the road acceptances.
Correct, Larry. We had a public hearing, actually, so it was posted and advertised.
Right.
To the abutters, so when we accepted.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Okay, we're going to pass over the next one on the agenda, the Rockland Holiday Stroll request, Pam Murphy. We're going to try to have her in for the next meeting, October 1st. All right, goals and objectives, town administrator and assistant town administrator.
Thank you. So, Mike, you and I have had a couple of conversations about this earlier, so my sense of how you wanted to handle this, and, please tell me if you disagree, is, Jen and I took some time to draft some potential goals and objectives. We thought we'd just sort of quickly run down them just to kind of present them to you. And then I think the thought was maybe you would kind of think about this and then have a future follow-up meeting, which could even be in a different format, maybe more like a workshop around a table rather than, this format, whatever you want to do. But I thought for the purposes of tonight, I wouldn't take too much time. I would just kind of quickly explain the rationale and sort of list them, and obviously feel free to ask any questions you have. And I think I'm going to do the talking for now, but I'm just going to encourage Jen to jump in and correct me or supplement with what I'm saying. And she was very helpful because, I had a number of things here, but she really helped kind of organize this a little bit better into some of these categories. This has been kind of a working document, and there's actually already another draft, which I didn't want to update what's already in your packet with something new, but we're just kind of continually trying to make this sort of the most functional document we can. So, Jen included up at the top the things you've talked about before, the SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timing aspects of goals. So we're, hopefully we're able to do that for all of these. And ultimately, once you endorse something like this, we think there could be some columns on the right, which for each of these rows, we could kind of identify near-term, medium-term, long-term, sort of how they're measured. But we just wanted to keep it simple for tonight. I also want to highlight that the numbers in that left-hand column associated with this, it was my attempt to prioritize, because it's unlikely we're going to get everything done. So this was sort of our attempt to say, we're going to start with number one in each category and work our way down. And if this is probably one of the most important things. If you guys disagree with the prioritization of that, we want to know that so we can change it accordingly. So the first focus group is capital improvement. First and foremost, we thought that supporting the school building project was critical, and that's something we're already doing. You just set the date for the special town meeting and election, so that's going to move forward, and we've had an excellent working relationship with the school department thus far. I should have had a little bit more care on how I sort of display this, but the number 2 relates to this next category, which is facilities, and in particular there, what we're talking about is coordinating some of the immediate, short-term improvements that we have to make here. And I've shared with you a list of that in the past. I won't go through it again, but there's just a number of, repairs and improvements that we need to make, and we're gonna work on. That's in the short term. The longer term is kind of getting a better solution to how we handle facilities. We're already starting to talk to the school department, and we'll come up with other plans for that. But it's very challenging without a facilities department in town. Number 3 is the McKinley School. Again, we talked earlier tonight about the CPA application for the sprinkler, so that's excellent. We also talked about the $30,000 that was appropriated for the feasibility study. So we're gonna work on that just to kind of start the discussion on where we go with that, because that's an important capital asset that we need to move on one way or the other. Number 4, capital improvement plan. Every town has to have it every year. We're going to work to develop that. Number 5 is essentially providing support for wastewater and sewer treatment analysis and upgrade. I think I saw Chuck here earlier. He may have left from the sewer commissioners, but we've already begun doing that, and we understand there's an elected sewer commission, so it's not as though we oversee that department per se, but we're gonna work with them and help them to the extent that we can.
I think that as a board, we should publicly endorse what they're doing so that people know that we're on board with it also.
Sure.
I mean, in the past, everybody sort of did their own thing, and not everybody was aware. So in this day and age, quite frankly, we need sewer, and we need more water, and we need grants for application to get more water delivery systems in place, and the same thing with the sewer. I mean, the government gives us a housing production plan and says they want 10% affordable housing, but then they make it impossible for you to implement that because you don't have enough water or sewer to do that.
Right.
So it's in a catch-22. It says, here, go and do this, and we'll help you, but we won't give you the money you need. Infrastructure quite across the state in those two particular areas is going to be critical, not counting trash removal, which is another big money item that's going to come up in the future because there's no place to put the stuff anymore. It just isn't. So what are we going to do? But those are bigger problems than we have to do tonight. But
yeah, so we've had good lines of communication with John Laughlin and the commission, and an obvious point is the plant was built in the 60s, I think upgraded in the 80s, and so it's going to need reinvestment in the
serious
distribution.
money.
Yeah, serious
right.
money.
And
So
the government
and the first
has to
step is
they have to
analyzing.
step forward and say, yeah, we're going to give you the majority of it, and then if they have to bleed us somewhere else for 100 years, then so do it. But you can't expect the townspeople to pay for this particular generation of town people to pay for the infrastructure that's been going on in this town. And we need major infrastructure changes at the water and sewer plants in order to be able to increase our population. Otherwise, we're going to remain stagnant. So, I mean, that should be our priority as a board with those two boards, the water and the sewer, to work together to present a united front instead of a lot of separate departments and work toward that end. I think that's a very, very, very high priority, quite frankly.
I totally agree, and the only reason why water and sewer are kind of ranked lower is because, A, they're a little bit farther behind,
Right.
they're just starting the assessment process, and B, they're these kind of quasi-independent groups, so we're just providing a little bit of support, we're not leading
Oh,
the
no.
effort, so I just wanted to highlight that that's
Yep.
why it's not ranked number one.
Okay, I say one thing. Like I think, and it seems like the foundation of this is already heading there. But like a plan for goals that also allow for flexibility. One thing, as we're talking about water and sewer, the next thing on the agenda, like, is Union Point, and how that whole thing is going to happen. I mean, I think one of the flexible things, hopefully, is that we could have an opportunity through that development, hopefully moving forward, to help address those needs as well. So I think the flexibility inherent here will allow for some overarching achieving of a whole bunch of goals, if that makes sense. So.
Sure. We have supporting the development of a fire station construction project listed next. Again, I know there's been a committee and there's been some schematic designs and plans, but it's a little bit farther behind some of the other projects listed higher. Complete streets. I know we're working with Dave Taylor, and he knows what he's doing there. That's a long-term goal. And then we have the joint waterworks expansion analysis and upgrade listed last. Again, not because it's the least important, but just because where they're at in the process and the fact that they're a separate entity. So for capital improvement, that was our first cut. The next category is community and economic development. And I listed as number one sort of processing all the requests for medical and recreational marijuana licenses and all the related work, communicating with applicants, interested businesses, abutters, special permits, host community agreements, et cetera, mainly because you'd be shocked at how many requests and how much of this going on behind the scenes. It's probably every week I get a call from somebody asking, how many do we have? Do we have a cap? What's the process? So I actually have council helping us put together a matrix that's going to put everything down on a piece of paper so we can see by category everybody that's in a pipeline, with an HCA, without, with a letter of support, without, by address, because frankly it's getting a little bit confusing, and I know some are looking to change. And there's also a whole group of people that are concerned about it as well. Some abutters are reaching out wanting to know what's happening at this address or that address because they might have some concerns. So that's really, I think, important to us because it's obviously an important issue. Union Point, you just brought that up. We listed that right up there, right after number one. The Union Street Plan, which we heard tonight from the consultant and from Jen. So we have that listed there. Related to that, 40R implementation. That's obviously all connected. The master plan update, we gave the update about the committee and the work that's going on right now to update it. And then lastly, the housing production plan, which will be a little bit farther behind all of those. These are all huge things, obviously. I think the marijuana, you'll probably see something happen soonest. There's companies that have capital that want to get their special permits and get permits from the Cannabis Control Commission, so that'll happen. I think some of these other things will take a little bit longer. So the next category, and feel free to jump in if I'm going too quick and you have any other questions. The next category is operations, which is probably something that I've spent the most time on thus far since I've started. And I just thought it was critical to put, right up top, number one, stressing the importance of ethics, with all our staff and leading by example. And again, I don't say that to slight anybody that's here because that's not an issue for people that are here, but it's just because of what's happened in the past with others. So I just wanted to put that down on paper, that I've been taking that seriously, and I think hopefully it's been effective. Time will tell. But I talk about it at each department head meeting. We talk about real concrete examples. It's sort of interesting. I've given good examples of things that people do well. I think in the last selectmen's meeting, when the finance committee chairman, John Pumphrey, put in the disclosure statement about potential perceived conflict, like that's a great example of how to do things transparently and above board, and like that's the right way. And then we go over just some crazy examples, like with the Zoning Board of Appeals in Boston and people taking bribes and just nutty stuff that you wouldn't think people would do these days. But, we talk about it each month, and we'll continue to do that. Number two is, the town budget, just, working with the financial department heads and developing and implementing the budget. That's, without that, we can't open our doors. Supporting the charter review committee process, that's obviously important to the operations of the town. Number four, we're talking about improving interdepartmental staff communications. Again, we've got finance staff meetings that we're doing on a regular basis. We have our all-department head meetings, and I've been very pleased with how they've been going, and everybody comes prepared, and they take them seriously, and I'm very happy with that. Next, this is a little bit more work, but I think is also critical, is developing and implementing performance evaluations for all the staff, both union and as well as department heads. And it's, as you can imagine, it's an awkward thing for me to propose, especially for elected department heads, but I appreciate how they've all been willing to consider it, and we're working through that. We've had a subgroup working with our HR director who's been looking at review tools, helping design review tools. So we've had staff input in developing that, and we're taking it one step at a time. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we're working toward it, and I'm appreciative of how receptive people have been to the introduction of the topic, because it hasn't really happened here in the past. Related to that, and also similarly, I think difficult for some, is developing and trying to implement some new personnel policies and move away from all the individual contracts that we have. I know that gives a lot of people some anxiety, and it's not something I'm just going to put a hammer down or encourage you to put the hammer down. I want to work through it and talk through it with staff, but I think it's a more professional way to go, and so we're working toward that goal. Number 7, we're looking at identifying training needs and opportunities for staff. That's obviously important in every organization. Number 8, helping to improve the public perception of town government. That's a long-term effort. Hopefully we've made good inroads with that thus far. And then lastly, looking at identifying future staffing needs. And, again, the 2 examples, we talked about a facilities director. That's probably number 1 on my list. And then just with the Union Street plan we heard tonight, from the consultant, again, this type of thing normally would be handled by a planner, in most other towns, and we don't have that here. So Jen and I and, lots of us are going to try to chip in and help. But I can confidently say, if the town had a planner, it'd be done better and faster. That's what they specialize in. The next category is communications, and there's, different aspects of this. There's the kind of physical IT component of that. We have Munis, which is excellent. I think it's great that the town got on Munis a number of years ago. There's different tweaks to that Biz, the town accountant, is looking at. We might change some things relating to that. Gino, our IT director, has been excellent at supporting it, so we're going to continue to expand that capability and make us as efficient and as effective as we can. Similarly, Gino and IT has plans for looking at upgrading our voice over internet protocol phone system, because some of the hardware is pretty outdated, and so that's some physical communications. As far as sort of the non-physical, I think improving and maintaining what we've started here with communicating between my office and you, that's critical. That's number 1 and the only one in that internal category for me. For external, there's a lot of different sort of external stakeholders, and I feel like the number 1 most critical external communication link that we wanted to make sure was positive was the school department. It's the biggest part of our budget, it's the heart of the town, and you made that clear to me when you hired me that was important. So we've begun that, and that's number 1. Following that, we have just being responsive to all residents and businesses. Hopefully you've heard that over the last 2 months, that phone calls get returned, emails get returned, and we try to be responsive and help where we can. Number 3, introducing the use of social media. We'll try to be very cautious, in that and not go crazy, but we have started with Twitter. That really, I think, helped in the beginning phase of the Republic trash strike. It enabled us to get information out very quickly, because facts were changing on the ground hourly. And now we're trying to also give other types of updates, other positive information about the town. It's all related to sort of improving our image. And again, we've just begun that, but I think that's going to prove to be very effective. And we're going to look at other forms of social media in the future as well. We've already begun, number 4, improving the use of our current website. Gino's done a really good job about, for example, adding, I forgot the term for it, but embedding our Twitter feed right on the homepage of the website. So, that type of thing, improving the frequency that he's updating important town information right on the homepage. Ultimately, down the road, I think we'd like to actually upgrade the whole website, but because of the age of the one that we have now, there's a cost involved, so that's going to take a little while to get there. In general, creating a positive communications with local and regional media outlets. I talked earlier about having to cancel a contract that we had with a PR firm, but I have my own list of contacts with all the media, and we're, I think thus far working very effectively with them. And then lastly, in the external category, improving our external relations, whether it's with the Mass Municipal Association, South Shore Chamber of Commerce, neighboring towns, all those groups. And I think between Jen and I, we've begun doing that. The next category is public safety. Again, number 1, we have this in 2 places, supporting the development of a fire station construction project. That really is important, not just for emergency response and being an effective fire station, fire department, but as you saw in the plan earlier, vacating that outdated building could make there could be great other uses on Union Street. And that, between the fire station, the library, the McKinley School, that could be our skin in the game to really jumpstart that whole process. The police station, it's in good shape, but there will be improvements that will need to be made. And I was going to note this later, but I might as well mention it now since we do have as our last item supporting the municipal vulnerability program implementation. We did just get formal announcement from the Executive Office and Environmental Affairs that we have been designated as an MVP community, which is excellent. I know Chief Duffy, the fire department, did a lot of work, and I know Jen worked with him as well. So now kind of going to the next step. Again, it's going to be challenging. In most towns, it's handled by a Department of Natural Resources and by the Planning Department. We don't have either here, so we'll figure out, how we can maximize that to the extent possible. And then the last category is just sort of general initiatives. Number 1 for me is always going to be, developing and overseeing all the town meeting warrants, special town meeting, annual town meeting. That's obviously number 1. That's how we get our business done. The next thing is participating in the regional and state associations, in addition to the kind of the external relations we talked about above. There's all the other groups. I won't go through and list them all, but you can see them there. There's participating in the associations, I think, is critical for us to learn as well as for us to gain resources. Next, professional development, whether it's my recertification and procurement training from the IG's office, Jen doing the municipal hearing officer training or taking additional Suffolk courses, we think is important. Number 4, maintaining support for the community development block grant. They've been good partners with us, and we want to continue that partnership. And then lastly, Green Communities Act grants. You can see the sign on the wall. As you all know, we were designated a green community years ago, so we're going to continue to work on those initiatives. So I know that's a lot of information. I hope that the grouping was helpful and the prioritization was helpful. Jen and I are here to answer any questions you have now, or we can save it for a future meeting if you'd like.
We gave you an awful lot to put on your plates when you walked through the door, and that was the plan, quite frankly, to get a professional group of people who understand the town, understand what has to be done. And I talked to Biz tonight in the accounting, and she's busy trying to get her stuff together too, as far as straightening out the town the way she would like things to go. And that's quite frankly we're expecting you to do, is to establish what you've done here, priorities, and what you see as a priority, because you're looking at it from a whole different angle now. You're not Rockland residents, you're not, but you're pros, and you know what needs to be done, and you can look at everything objectively, where a lot of us are subjective to what our favorite things are, if you will. You know what I mean?
Some bias.
People always have some sort of a favorite thing they want done versus somebody else's, and having the priorities set by people who have the priorities of the town in mind and not the priorities of any one group of individual type of thing. And I think that's an important aspect of the objectivity that the three is, quite frankly, bring. To me, it's a combination of a lot of years of trying to put people in the right place in this town so that we can, I don't want to say get rid of our reputation, but I guess that might be part of it. And to show the people that Rockland is a viable town in a great location. We get all the things that anybody would want to live here, and now we have a professional team, if you will, to make sure that that happens. And you know, I don't want to put too much pressure on you or anything like that, but so far you guys are doing great. You know, you're way ahead of what I thought we might be at. Both professional, both got your head screwed on straight, work together well. That's a lot of big things, you know. And in this town where we always had, people were always on sides. I don't care who you were or where you were. You couldn't say hi or boo to anybody without saying, well, they, you know, they're against this, whatever. Now we have a lot of people working for the town of Rockland. There's still some stragglers who, you know, wish to keep their own fiefdoms or whatever, but for the most part, everybody's working together, and the last two town meetings were evidence of that the people enjoy what we're doing. So I want to keep it going. Anything that we can do to support you, let us know, and you know, we'll let you do the job. And if there's any issues, we'll bring them up and we'll discuss them like big people should. And so far, this town is getting way better already. We're already far better off for having you here than we were prior to it. And that doesn't, and I'm not taking into the BS that went on. I'm just talking about the people and the work and the way things were done. We've made a big improvement. Things are, clerk's office a couple of years ago, you know, they're starting to modernize too. We got people in there that want to change the way we do business. And that's an important thing. So I hate to keep rambling on here, but I think it's, the people really want to know that if we're going to spend their money, we want to be responsible and spend it, and we want to have results. And this will show us a lot of good results because we're spending good money for good administration, and I think that we're going to get it. So I'm happy so far. I don't want to say that you will beat us yet, but you're what we need, you're what the town of Rockland needs, and you're here. That's all.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I guess maybe the other thing I want to say is it's obviously awkward for the staff that's been here for a while because I'm new and Jen is new and her position is new, and so I think it's natural that some people might feel, I don't want to say unappreciated, but it's awkward because we're coming in saying we want to do things differently. Does that imply everything was done wrong? And we're not saying that. And I want to just say out loud for the public to hear as well as the staff that we appreciate what everybody's been doing for years and what they're doing now. But we're talking about priorities and goals and objectives, and that's why you brought us in.
No, right. You're doing a great job.
Anybody else?
Oh, I just have one thing. Oh, not specifically on any of the goals. I think they're perfect, and in my opinion, they really reflect where we want to go, and and also what I think we as a board want you to do and would like you to do. The question I have goes back to what Larry mentioned earlier in terms of how do we take this can really come up also separate from this with goals for our board as well and to make sure they're working in sync with all these as well. So I think these are perfect, but I are similar to what Larry I mentioned. I would like us as a board to really set our own expectations about how we operate, how we liaise with different other groups, and our committees, and frankly how to hopefully, I mean, I know like everyone, or there are like a lot of committees and boards that like are appointed by us, but they're autonomous for a very good reason, but how we as a board could, generally speaking, get on the same page to make sure we're all going like in the right direction. So these little fiefdoms, they kind of done away with, and we're all kind of moving forward, like at least with an understanding of like what this board's goals are, as well as what our planning board, the direction that they might be headed. So separate from the administrative stuff, that we have like a strategy and are aligned with everyone as well. So that just, maybe that just wasn't even on the agenda because it's separate from your goals, because I think, these are perfect, but I think that's one area where I think we should go as a board, like in conjunction with this process, I guess, is what I'm saying. I'll stop now, but.
If I could respond to that?
Yep.
So many of the board members have submitted your own personal
Yes.
goals and objectives. Doug and I did take a look at those, and most of them are incorporated, actually, I think all of them are incorporated
Yep.
one way or another in the goals and objectives. But to your point, for the board's policies, one recommendation might be, and honestly, I'm not sure if there are specific Board of Selectmen policies and procedures. If not, to maybe start thinking about adopting a set of policies and procedures, or if they do exist, to just take a, to visit those and see if there's any adjustments or procedures you'd like to add in. Maybe around communication with other boards and commissions, whether you have a quarterly meeting where you have them report back on a set schedule so that everyone is in communication with each other.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're hoping to do at some point in a meeting, that we do it more of a workshop where we can kind of sit back as a group and put out there what we think our goals and objectives should be for our board. Also for you guys. I to be honest, we asked for goals and objectives, and I got this email last week. I was like, wow, these guys really went deep on this, which is great. And I'm in agreement with Mike. I think they're all very good. I think as a board, though, we should sit back and evaluate line by line and just make sure that, if their priorities differ in any manner from ours, then we should, report that back. And if the document comes back to you guys the way it's printed, then really great job on it, But we'll set that up for probably sometime in October, I think. Maybe not the October 1st meeting, but maybe the second one, or maybe we'll throw an extra meeting in there at some point.
Yeah, like a workshop.
Yeah, just a workshop.
Yep.
And we can do it downstairs. There's cameras downstairs, and the public is welcome to attend, obviously. But we'll just be discussing, what our thoughts are, and what maybe to your point too, if there's policies and procedures for a board of selectmen in general. So, Kara, any comments? I didn't mean to pass over you. I was just answering a direct
I'm used to
question.
it.
Yeah, well, I told you I wouldn't. So.
No, I think I'm good for now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
A lot to digest, too. And with this, too, I mean, it's great that there are goals and objectives, but these are all things that you guys are already working on. And sometimes, even though it's your goal to do things in this order, you guys are working on all this stuff coming at you as it comes at you, and the priorities constantly changing. So, kudos to you guys. And to your comment about, having a great staff in place already, you're 100% right. The people that have worked in this building before you guys got here have done an excellent job, and maybe as a board we haven't done a great job of celebrating their success as well as we should have, and for that we should do more of that, and I think maybe we should go a step further and maybe invite one department each meeting to kind of present to us, just so that we can have that opportunity to go over what they're doing in their department, so that the people in town know what they're doing in their department, and we can recognize them for positive feedback. Sure. So, okay. Moving on. Next on the agenda, reappointment, Southfield Development Authority Board Member Tom Henderson, 102 Arlington Street, 3-year term. Mr. Henderson, once again.
Thank you. Thank you for redoing the agenda last week. I realized that the appointment was up for the board. I want to give you some updates on where we're at. It's been, I have Kelly McKinnon here, also the co-appointee from Rockland. It's been a long summer. It's in the project. As you know, we defaulted L-Star back in late winter, and we've been working with Washington Capital, which was the bank that took over the project, and we've been working on an RFP process. I'm happy to report that the RFP is going to a vote with the SRA tomorrow night. It's been a long and difficult process. There's several stakeholders that are involved, through whether it's local, state, or federal stakeholders, to work on this, and we're very happy with the product that we're going to turn out. We're looking for a well-capitalized, well-qualified master developer to make sure we can move this project. I think we have one last shot. If not, we're going to be looking at serious issues over there. Everybody that comes in and looks at this, whether it's be an investor or a potential developer, sees the value in this project, where it's proximity to Boston, availability of a commuter line, and the proximity to Route 3. But I will say this, though. Many people look at this as a brass ring, but we have many things that we have to overcome. We have conservation restrictions, open space to deal with, traffic improvements, water and sewer that was discussed tonight. All those things need to be dealt with. The legislation for this project changed in 2014, and quite honestly, it did a lot of change, but we have to go back and look at it and see what we need to change. It turned over the water and sewer to the private developer. It's almost impossible to do that. There's no public funding available to get that on the move. There's no public funding for transportation. I want to say, in some of the goals and objectives that I heard tonight, they've already been very successful, your team with the town administrator and the assistant town administrator, and communication, and we've started those discussions about how we deal with water, sewer, infrastructure, traffic, and how we bring in the towns to be a part of that. Again, the RFP tomorrow night, it's out in draft form right now. You can get it on our website. It will be published on the 25th, once it's voted, of September. They have 60 days to respond. There'll be a selection committee, which includes one member from the town of Rockland, Abington, Weymouth, and then a congressional appointee. And then at that point, they'll go and shortlist it for the qualified, make sure they're qualified. There's minimum qualifications for this. And then at that point, we're looking at January, excuse me, January 2020, to have a selection of a master developer. We'll enter into an exclusive negotiation phase, and this phase will get us to the final development and disposition agreement. So we have a long road ahead of us, but we're moving. I feel Rockland is still well positioned in this project. I know it's been a long process, 20 years, but I do feel that, you know, right now, with the people that have voiced interest, I think it will be a successful project. We will have to start making decisions on how we deal with various things throughout this, but I think they'll be done with at a professional level. So if anybody has any questions, I hope to come back once we get the RFP out, to come back to the board and give a report on where we're at.
Anybody have any questions at home?
I just have one thing before we make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, frankly, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Kelly. The stuff, especially the past 10 months or so that you've had to deal with, was probably stuff that you never really anticipated. And
What's that like?
We share a common bond here.
We do.
Frankly, hearing Tom just talk about his summer, and I thought about
Our previous summer.
our last summer, and there were a bunch of critics and naysayers and frankly plain just crazy people out there who don't even come close to appreciating what your roles are and what you've been through and really what you're trying to do, and the promise that that whole development, that whole project offers to our town and the region. Yes, are there layers that you have to work through and the town will undoubtedly have to work through? Yes, but with a project like that, that's all intertwined with the state and the local and the federal government, that's inherent. There are going to be those things, and for you, Tom, and Kelly, to keep your eye on that and to always have Rockland's interests at heart and not, frankly, get bogged down by these naysayers, because I would have told them off 100 times by now.
Well, he might have been, Mike, you just don't know about it yet.
Exactly. I just want to thank you because,
Thank you.
like, at least like from my perspective, and I think our entire board's perspective, we appreciate you. We know what it's like to be under fire, like you've been under fire, and we share that bond. I guess it's a special bond, but I just want to thank you. So.
And I want to thank the board and the staff here in Rockland for the autonomy, which is great because we can make decisions that are in the best interest of the project and the town of Rockland. And that's what Kelly and I do. We strategize. I talk to Kelly, I think, more times in a week than I do anybody else about how we're strategizing to turn out the best product for the town of Rockland. But ultimately for the project, because if it's all successful, Rockland will be successful.
Can I just say one thing too? So Tom's not going to state it, but Tom's item chair for our board, and he's done an exemplary job of being chair. He's worked so many countless hours this summer with this RFP process, and I so know that we should really appreciate all that he's done. And he doesn't say much about it, but he's given up pretty much his whole summer for it. So
you're on board with us reappointing him?
yeah, I think it'll be okay.
I thought I was going to get the
Just wanted to
vote.
make sure.
I got my fall
We gotta
back.
give her a chance,
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, appreciate that. I'll entertain a motion to reappoint.
I'll make that motion that Tom Sanderson be appointed the Southfield representative.
Southfield Redevelopment Authority.
I'll
Redevelopment
second that.
Authority.
Thank you, Larry.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, just thank you for all you do. You're always
really.
very open and transparent. I've gotten multiple phone calls from you since I've been elected, and you're knowledgeable, and I have the most confidence in you over there.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you.
Okay, motion second. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
We don't let the good ones get
Thank you,
away.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, other new business not reasonably anticipated. Nothing left on that, Doug? No surprises, right? Okay. All right, number 5, Town Administrator's report and correspondence. Doug Watt.
I'll keep this brief. One thing I wanted to mention was the information session dates that have been scheduled for the proposed school building project. Now that you've set the date for town meeting of December 2nd and the date of the election, December 7th, there will be a number, 5 separate public information sessions. We put it out on our Twitter feed, which is at Rockland Town. I'll just list the first one right now, which is Thursday, October 17th at the Senior Center from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Again, these types of events are just strictly to put out information, just to educate and inform the public with facts so they can make the best decision they can. There'll be 4 other ones, another one later in October, and then 3 more in November for the public. I also wanted to mention that tomorrow night, Gino, the IT director, is going to be presenting at the Finance Committee. At a previous meeting, probably about a month or so ago, one of the members had asked what the town is doing to protect our IT infrastructure against potential ransomware, other types of security threats. So he's done an excellent job of not just doing important things, but also kind of summarizing them and documenting them. So he's going to present that tomorrow night. I'll be sure to give you a copy of that. We probably won't say everything we're doing because we don't want to tip our hand too much. But he's doing a good job both with his own experience as well as pulling in other resources and getting advice, all kinds of testing, So I just want to I'm always very sensitive about presenting information like a Finance Committee before the Board of Selectmen. But in this case, I thought it was important, and I'll make sure to share that information with you. And then, some of you might touch on these last 2 things, so I'll just mention it briefly. But I did attend the Rockland Cares event that was held recently. I know I was there with Donna and Judy from the clerk's office and the tax collector's office. I won't say much other than that it was unbelievably moving and powerful, and I'm glad I went, and I appreciate what the community's doing. And then lastly, I had the pleasure of going to the high school football game. I saw Mike there. I think you were also working behind the snack shack doing triple duty that night.
Wait, really?
There was the dedication for the POW
Yeah.
chair, so you were officiating that.
I had my kids there,
but
too,
the
so I
whole
was chasing them the whole night.
Yeah, the whole event was just amazing. Again, for me, coming from out of town, just this historic stadium, seeing the football team play in that baseball infield, and there's the pride that the whole town has in that. And then seeing the old-fashioned marching band come out, and I thought they did a fantastic job. It was really just awesome. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to the football team who played a great game and they won in a pretty dramatic style, and everyone else that was there.
Yeah, and Doug wasn't just sitting there in the stands, like he was actively rooting for Rockland. And they scored, I think the first touchdown they had in front of us, he wept out of his seat, like, that was amazing, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it was
it was instant fandom, so
Yeah.
we'll take it.
That's it, that's all I have.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen and are opinions and comments of only the individual member. Mr. Mullen.
I also attended the Rockland Cares vigil, and there's really not a whole lot of words to use to be able to describe it, but it really just, again, really showcases and that's probably a bad word, but really proves how special of a town Rockland is. 9 years later, we still come together to, to really, have to come together to reflect and to support each other. And it's always just like a really, poignant night to be able to participate in that. And then on a way more somber note, I just wanted to kind of make note of the fact that while we're sitting here tonight, doing the business of the town, like and making jokes here and there. There's a family up the street from the neighboring town of Hanson, just mourning their 8-year-old daughter, like at my Biggins funeral home. And as always, the Biggin family does, they are treating this very tragic situation with just nothing but the class that they always do. But it just really, I just want to extend my thoughts, and I think our whole board thoughts to the Earl family from Hanson. It's just, it's just unfathomable, and being like a neighboring community where you all are, like everything intertwines, and we're always there for each other, and it's just, that's just been on my mind the past few days, and it's just. It just makes you really reflect and think, and there really aren't any words to really talk about that either. So I'll just leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Ms. Nyman?
I would like to give a shout out to our colleague, Rich Penny. I know it's his birthday today, so
that's what I was going
I'd
to
like to wish him a happy birthday. Unfortunately, he's not with us tonight, but hopefully he's enjoying his birthday, so that's all I have.
He actually, I think he started a new job today, so he's in New
Oh, good
York
for
as
him.
well. So yeah, happy birthday, Rich. Mr. Ryan.
That was top of my list. Happy birthday, Rich, wherever you are. A couple of things. One is there's a picture that was in the office of the rail trail that somebody in the past promised to repay the girl who took the picture. It was $100. It's now over the collector's office because he didn't know what to do with it. I think it would be nice if the 5 selectmen each gave $20 and we bought the thing and presented it to the town hall to be displayed wherever they see fit. You know, it's the least we can do for all the money they give us and the benefits that we receive doing this job.
No, in all seriousness, it's fine.
Okay, just so $20 a piece, and it's $100. It goes to the girl who took the test. Took the picture. We promised it to her sometime before. I'm not exactly how it gets confused, but we can straighten it out by doing that. Let's see. Master plan thing. Facilities. We have money in facilities somewhere, right?
There's money appropriated for capital projects, yes.
Okay.
So we're working through that.
I just want to make sure
Yes.
that we knew about that was another thing
Yes,
that was in the
there is
budget.
for capital projects.
2 things on a personal nature. One, my youngest son, Tom Ryan, is being inducted in the Rockland Sports Hall of Fame at the high school on October 26th.
I will be too.
Yeah. There you go.
Sorry.
And,
Really?
No. Come on.
but anyway, that's October 26th. And,
Sorry, I
Is that too strong of an
No,
objection?
no, it's well deserved. Sorry,
So learned.
which I also have to mention is the same night as Mary and I's 49th wedding anniversary. Also, my oldest boy, Larry, was a president of a division of Dow Chemical, is now North American president Neuron, which is a specialty chemical company. He's based in Amsterdam. That's where he is now, as he's taken over the reins of the North American aspect of it. It's quite an honor, and whoever thought there'd be Ryans that were that important, besides me. Anyway, it's congratulations to them both. I'm proud of all my children. I have 4 great sons, but these 2 have their numbers come up lately for the special accolades, so I got to make sure they get it. Other than that, the town is doing good. I think everybody's working well together, and on we go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ryan. That's great about Tom. He was a year ahead of me in school, and he was an excellent athlete, very good athlete. It's a good honor. I don't really have much. I did want to thank Stacy Gardner and the Rockland Cares group. I wasn't able to make the vigil the other night. I was stuck working, but Stacy and her group, as always, do an amazing job, and it is one of those signature events in town that it's unfortunate that that we have to have it because of all the tragedies that have struck the town, but it's done with a lot of dignity and grace, and they do an excellent job, and they're one of the really bright spots in our town. So thank you, Stacy, and the Rockland Cares. Other than that, I don't think I really have anything, and we have executive session coming up. So I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session, not to reconvene.
I'd like a motion to enter into executive session for the disposition of real property at 327 Weymouth Street and not to reconvene.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Ms. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you. Good night.